Right, let's start. So, good morning, everyone, and warm welcome to our SEMLEP webinar, Get Going in 2021, Tools to Revise Your Business Focus. I'm Emmanuel from SEMLEP, and it's with a great pleasure that I will welcome Linda Veal, our guest today, who's going to show us how to revise our product portfolio and target markets following COVID and leaving the EU. Just a few words about Linda, if I may. Linda spent much of her early career in the printing industry, working at DuPont and Fujifilm, identifying product and market opportunities and securing investment for business growth. As a director of UPMS, her focus has been on helping businesses grow through product and market investment, management skills and expertise. She is currently Chief of Staff at The Drum, a leading global publisher for the marketing and media industries, and a SEMLEP ambassador. Linda's wealth of experience across multiple industries and her background expertise in identifying new market opportunities is unique, and she's here really to share this with you. So Linda, thank you very much and welcome to you.
All right, yes, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Good morning, everyone. I'll just share my screen if I can find that. Okay, so we didn't have an opportunity to check this earlier. Just trying to locate why that isn't coming up. Just one moment again. Okay, can everyone see that on the screen then? Yeah, can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you again. So I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about revising your product portfolio and target markets in light of Brexit, COVID and many changing business models. Not easy, I know. I'm going to focus on 6 key topics today, and I'll outline these briefly and then come back to you to talk about the format of the session, if that's okay. So first of all is understanding how your business is performing. What should you be looking out for when assessing individual overall marginal profitability and ensuring you have the right data? The second is the importance of assessing your existing projections, the need to adjust your plans, potentially your business model, operating costs and forecasts if necessary, if your volumes or price or other factors have changed. Third is knowing what your value proposition or competitive advantage is. Now that sounds big company stuff, but it is worth understanding as we come out of COVID and enter the real post-Brexit environment. That comes hand in hand with checking how much you know about your competition, new technologies, new products and markets. Difficult to do, but again, putting some time aside to review this could be valuable in assessing changes in your market and your customer base. Fifth on my list is appreciating what is needed if you are going to explore investment opportunities properly. What key data is required? How can you ensure you're spending time and money on the right opportunities? And how to really understand the expected return on investment and the risks associated with that. Finally, I'm going to look at the need to be confident in the business decisions you are taking. Are they correct? Are they based on accurate and factual data? And do they support the business strategy if there is one? Now, before I start, I did want to just mention why do I have the right to speak? Emmanuel's mentioned some of my past. I have spent over 30 years in business, product and market development of some kind. That's been in global, UK and European markets. And that's with a mix of products and industries, from software solutions to high value hardware to financial services. And I've been responsible for large multi-million pound cases to very small enhancement programs. So one extreme to the other. Most of what I will say is common sense, best business practice and guidance for you and your teams. but it is based on my experience of what is important, and I have seen many investment projects succeed and fail. I only have 7 key slides, but they do cover a lot. So I've highlighted the key takeaways from each slide, mainly as a reminder, because I know we generally manage to take away only a small percentage of what we see at these webinars. Now, there'll be plenty of time for Q&A at the end, as that's the main point of the webinars, to ask questions and to share experiences with others. Alternatively, you can jot down your questions in the chat and we can answer them as we go along, whichever you prefer. Sam, I'm not sure I can see my chat because we didn't have time to check that through, but you can advise if there's some coming through, please. Okay, if there's no questions at this point, then I'll go on to topic number 1. So, ensuring you have accurate data on the performance of your products and services. This is a key question. Do you know which of your products and services are making you money? And it's not always as easy as cost versus selling price versus volume. It can be very difficult. I've seen this in many cases. It not only depends on the type of product, but complexities such as, are they sold direct or via a channel, via permanent or contract staff? Do they have a long tail liability, as in the case of insurance products? Do they include support, maintenance, or amortization of the development costs? It may be a third-party product with complex commission structures. All of these variables may mean you are not getting a true picture of the performance of your products and services. However you approach it, you need to report consistently, at least for that product or service, but ideally across all. You need to understand also what cost allocation is being used, and that can vary. Full or part fixed costs? Is it inclusive of sales salaries, inclusive of marketing spend, inclusive of projected cost, or customer service after sales, or building overheads? There are lots of factors. And the reason this is important is that the results can be very different and initiate the wrong behavior. If you look at products based on the wrong data, you could assume some are large profit generators, when in fact they are not. And I've seen that happen. You also need to understand the importance of each product or service to the business. Loss leaders may be vital in supporting overall business costs and overheads, or maintaining market presence, or keeping a customer or client happy, or filling a gap in your offering. So everybody should be aware of why a product may be in the portfolio, even if it makes a loss. Otherwise, over time, that can be forgotten and the wrong judgments are made. So only by understanding all of that and how your products and services are performing against where you thought they would be, and with someone having ownership for this, can you make the correct decisions, and more on this a bit later on. Now, I've got some examples to outline the difficulty of this. And these are actual real-life examples. And the first one was when I was in a company recently, which was offering a skill-based service where advisors go on site and they review and provide a report for that company. Assessing if the business was making money was difficult. There was a different framework price for each customer, depending on their specific need, on their size, and the amount of other services they took. Then there was the fact that both contractors and permanent staff were employed. The cost difference of each had not been calculated. The cost was based on a fixed time on site, and the actual time on site was not recorded. So when it was looked into, the company incurred a loss with its largest customers, those that actually represented the majority of the business. Overall, the ability of that business unit to bring in profit was very difficult on this basis. Another example was assessing the margin of a software service used for surveys and analysis. It was being reported without full allocation of the platform costs, maintenance costs, release costs, and customer care costs. For other products in the group, these costs were included. So it was thought for several years that the product had a margin of over 85%, when in fact, when full allocation of all costs came into play, it dropped to less than 25%. So it was still making money, but it could then be compared equally against other products in the group and correct decisions on investment taken. My final example is a financial service which is an insurance product, and that I was involved in where future costs and claims against the product were predicted. The actual cost was based on past performance, future assumptions on claims, length and duration of the product life, capital impact, and premium calculation. How difficult actual performance was to assess with that product. So don't feel alone if you face similar challenges. The key is to know exactly what is included and what isn't included when assessing the performance of your services and products. So I pulled together the key takeaways from that topic. And to me, they're about knowing which of your products are making you money. If they're not, why not? And understand the importance of each of the product and service to the business going forward. Second on my list of topics, and Sam, I can't see if there's any particular questions at this point. Please do say if there are.
Okay, at the moment, Linda,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. So yes, the second is assessing if your existing cost, price and volume projections are still realistic. So this just isn't in case of assessing past performance. This is about the need to look forward. Are there any short-term or long-term changes in the market due to COVID and/or Brexit? That means looking at what changes might there have been in demand. Perhaps there's a change in the sales channel, or has the distribution channel or model changed? What about customer buying behavior? Have new online products come on the scene? Has the overall market changed? Or have you seen an increase in costs, a loss of sales, a loss of markets altogether? Many dealing with the Republic of Ireland have been hit with unexpected Brexit costs, for example. What about changes in home working, transport, fitness, travel? These are all major industries which have seen recent shifts. Have any of those or other changes touched your markets, customers, or products and services? Ideally, you should look at each product or service and their market. Take a sample of customers to talk to and try to understand potential longer-term trends. It is important to identify any changes or impact on volumes, mix, pricing, costs, forecasts, and work these into your business plan. Update the forecasts and strategy accordingly. If you are unsure as to the impact, do sensitivity models, best case, worst case financial scenarios. I know many of you will have done that already, but that is important, and I'll come on to that a little bit later on also. So all of these things can be very informative. So why is this so important? Your business model will be set up assuming such. Your overheads, your operating costs, your cash flow, any investments you have, any loans you've taken, your staffing, your stock levels, all will be impacted if your forecasts going forward are wrong. Your business plan and strategy, if you have one, will be based on expected sales, on key customers, on predictions of future spend, perhaps on new markets, products and customers. Even if the business plan assumed a level of variance on the figures, normally best case and worst case assumptions have been done, if those figures are wildly out, the business model may need to be reassessed. Accurate, robust, reliable data and forecasting is critical, particularly with the market today. Have you, your teams, revised the figures for their area and against the business plan? And more importantly, if there are gaps and shortfalls in income and/or sales, have there been recommendations, suggestions, or discussions about how to mitigate that shortfall? If nothing is immediately available to address the shortfall, and sometimes it isn't, what can be done to reduce the effect and risk on the business? Is someone responsible for looking at that and assessing the impact of doing nothing? So what are the key takeaways from that topic? So for me, it's about making sure your business model is still working correctly, understanding the impacts of COVID and Brexit, reviewing the items we've looked at, and checking that the data you have in updating that is realistic and accurate. That will affect how you go forward and your business planning and put you in a stronger step ongoing. So next topic, I'm assuming nothing's come through again, Sam, so stop if I have. The next topic is about understanding your value proposition, competitive advantages, feedback from customers. So I know what you're thinking. This is too big textbook, too big business, or that you know your customers and markets well enough and you don't need to do any more. And if you do, that is fine. But it is important to challenge and check that your teams or team and your business truly understand what your customers think of your products and services. Are you clear on how your products help their business, their value, the value they attribute to you, or the value they place on your company, your brand, and your proposition? What about their loyalty to you? What do they see as the long-term relationship? What may have changed for them as a result of COVID or Brexit? What about their customer base, their intention as a business? Is your value proposition still important to them in the new world? Do your products and services need to adapt to reflect that change? Are there any opportunities for new additional products and services that may help them grow? COVID and Brexit is a good opportunity to open a debate with your key customers about their future plans and needs and where you fit into that. The quickest way of increasing sales is normally with your existing customer base. Now, perhaps your relationship is based on that last contract win and you're just glad it is signed for the next period and the power is with your customer rather than you. Hence, asking about their long-term plans you don't think is appropriate. But customer information or insights of any level are critical at this time. What have you to lose in asking the question? Talk to your customers. It may give you valuable input on your market, their market, your future planning, and their response may help you shape and understand your unique selling proposition and product features. And that's important to you as you grow your business. So the key takeaways from that are the insights to me. Talk to your customers, particularly with the changes in COVID and Brexit, and try and understand what might have changed in that landscape going forward. That helps you look at your business and your plans in the coming years. Fourth on the list is about checking how much you know on your competition, your new technologies, your new products and markets, and threats to your product. So in my experience, this is one of the most difficult areas, no matter of what size of business you are. Not only is it hard to get accurate and relevant information on your competitors, when we do know it, how often do we actually act on it? Normally, there are people within the business who have a good view of the competitors and the market, even if we don't know exactly what they are charging or their future plans. It is worth a session, however, with your key team members on what has changed with regards to competition, technologies and new products. Take some time out to focus on it. You may be surprised what information is known, and particularly as a result of COVID, what new products and technologies may have become the norm now, rather than what was thought to be a future expectation. I know that many of us do assess our company strengths and weaknesses, SWOTs as they're known, but it is also worth revisiting this, as it may identify important areas that need further time and investigation to keep you ahead of the game and give you confidence that you and your team are thinking about and aware of new threats and challenges, very probable over the last 12 months, whether there's been minimal change or disruptive change to your market and your customers. You may find as a result of revisiting this, there are areas you really do need to explore that pose a high risk to you, your income or market, and further discussions may be needed. So the two takeaways from there are, from that is around the importance to review the market. In periods of extreme change, it is very key to understand what risks and opportunities there may be for you. Moving on to my fifth topic, and that is around understanding what is needed to explore potential investment opportunities. If you do have investment opportunities, it's important to assess them correctly. And I want to be clear here, I'm not talking about company acquisitions or mergers, although many of the principles are the same. They are slightly different and require much more formal due diligence. I'm talking about opportunities within your current business to expand into new markets, develop new products or services or offerings, or simply withdraw from a market or sector if it's not appropriate to continue. What is key to assessing any opportunity is robust data, accurate predictions, and realistic risk evaluation. The more reliable the information up front, the less likely you are to waste money down the line or fail overall with that opportunity. So what are the critical elements? Allow adequate time to investigate thoroughly. Have a team who know what they're doing and understand the importance of what they're doing, that they know what data they need to gather, which areas they need to focus on, are able to build a financial model with sensitivities and return on investment, and are able to identify the key levers for success. The financial model is critical. It quickly shows you which figures drive profit, which if they were to drop 10% may push you into loss, for example. You can then work on getting those figures as accurate as possible. Be willing to spend some money on insights or research, market testing, or experts if you need. You must understand if that market is real, if your new product or service will sell, if the market is even really there. Don't forget to look at all costs, those direct and indirect and ongoing. Consider the operational and implementation costs. Understand also the business appetite and what we call the business distraction element, the distraction of doing it. Is it a particularly busy time for the company with other projects? Can it manage multiple activities at once? Pull together the risks and hide nothing. Any decision must be taken assessing all risks, as well as the potential return. Remember, the more accurate the business case you have, the better. Now, I've got two extracts from real business cases that I want to show you as an example. You probably can't see the detail on the screen here, but the first is an actual financial model, and the second I'm going to show you are some assumptions. And the reason I do this is because it's quite important to see the levers and how the basis of a business model can really help drive your decisions. So the first, this particular actual case, is taken from one I discussed earlier, looking at the business of on-site advisors. I've modified this one, so the data is fictitious, and I've hidden the third year, so this was a 3-year model, and I've excluded actually the bottom line, return on investment and profitability, because what I want to demonstrate is the importance of the model itself and the bit which leads to all of that. Here, the red cells are all variable, so the figures can be input, and those figures automatically flow through the model. It means in this case, if you remember, we were talking about advisors and contractors and the cost of each. So in this case, we could alter not only the proportion of advisors and contractors, but the price, the volumes, and the packages. And so that we could see what made us money and what didn't. And this allowed us to focus on what was important. It formed the basis of the business case, and it allows you to create what we call sensitivity analysis. So you can quickly see by varying the figures, say 10% up or down on volumes, whether you move into a loss. And you can see those elements which are most affecting the bottom line. So this is an example again of how working through a base model as a starting point in any investment opportunity, whether it's looking at a new product market or smaller product enhancements, changing your proposition, looking at different packages, can see how successful they might be. And as I say, they're very, very easy to set up. The second is just an example again of a step further back. And this is around the importance of assumptions. And these are financial assumptions which were used. And this is another case, a case looking at the potential for a new product entering the market and the complexity in assessing the likely take-up rate with its customer group, and the different take-up rates and how the different offers were made up. So only by breaking this down could we really understand the impact on potential volumes. So whereas we assumed that there might be a take-up rate of receiving an email and then through to acceptance of an offer, that was quite incorrect. There were many, many different stages of take-up and depended on how you contacted that different element of customer group. And in fact, this particular business case did not proceed based on such detail, because when it was put into the overall financial model, similar to the one you saw a moment ago, actually we never made money. So these things are very important, and I often remind teams to start, if they can, with the financials very early on, however sparse they are, because it helps determine those key outcomes. So the key takeaways from this were three aspects. Allow time to investigate. If you've got opportunities, the biggest error is people rushing in, making decisions, and then they have huge costs later on when they realize something hasn't been investigated properly. The second is build that basic financial model to determine return on investment and identify those key levers for success. Very important as our markets are changing. We've seen that with Brexit and COVID. Look at again what might have been the model you've used before and check those assumptions. And one which people often forget is the business appetite. That's not only about risk, it's about taking on new things and the business distraction element. Have your people got enough on their plate? Have you got enough on your plate already? You might just be managing and trying to survive through COVID and Brexit. But as soon as you can do and you're ready, then it's important to bring that into the equation also. Okay, and to then the last topic I wanted to share, and that's about being confident in making business decisions. Only by having the right data, as you can see, I've tried to highlight, and the relevant and assessed data can you make confident business decisions. And by assessed, I mean that you know the level of risk. For example, a figure might be 50% inaccurate. That's fine. You'll rarely have 100% accuracy, but know that level of risk or potential inaccuracy and account for it. What about gut feel? I often get asked about this. Well, we do pay some of our people and our teams a lot of money for their view and knowledge of the market. And again, that's just aware if a figure being used is based on fact or belief and account for it in the assumptions. Comparing one opportunity against another is also important to determine which is a better use of your time and money, if only one can be done. The use of business cases are critical, however basic they are. They will help determine the success or otherwise of your decisions. Making sure there is a consistent approach when reviewing options and understanding the importance of outline financials in any investment decision is key. As you've seen, they quickly indicate the main levers for success, the figures which most impact that return on investment, and they'll provide the basis for your sensitivity models, best case, worst case, as discussed previously. Business cases can also help prioritization. If you're in a fortunate position to have multiple options for growth or investment, i.e. different enhancements to existing products or addition of new services or a new market, then only by assessing the benefit of one against the other can the correct priority be taken. Always learn from your previous projects or investments. If you are constantly overestimate or underestimating, whether that be sales, costs, or time to market, account for that next time, build in that contingency. Monitoring how you perform is important. Back to the first part of the webinar. So I'd like to end with one final example. And this is the importance of doing business cases in general and proceeding when you are proceeding with opportunities and or proceeding with them. This example is based on a case I was asked to investigate about 15 years ago when I joined a company involved in data capture who developed their own software and hardware solutions. I was asked specifically to assess a business case for a GPS location device to be used as part of a solution for international census. What I was trying to solve was that in many underdeveloped countries, the individuals that were recruited to carry out the census could not necessarily be relied upon to actually visit all the rural villages. They just filled in the forms for the money. Hence, the view was that a GPS device could be supplied with the census solution for reading the exact location to the nearest 5 meters, and that location had to be input at the point the census information was gathered. The difficulty was that the prototype GPS device had been developed based on the gut feel of one of the directors. No business case had been done and considerable money had already been spent, well over £250,000. When the business case was looked at, a number of issues were identified. Garmin had released a smartphone with GPS capability a year earlier. No plan had been prepared for how the devices would be distributed, i.e. where they would be stored. Security and safety in developing countries was a concern. How robust did those devices actually need to be when used in the field? Often there's monsoon climates or very hot or very cold conditions. Who would own the devices? Would the census country purchase them or would they be leased? What would happen if they did not work or were damaged? How would they be returned and repaired? The whole business model, once reviewed, was not practical. The main consideration had been around the cost and the selling price of the GPS unit itself, not how the whole operation might work. The project was canned in the end, with a loss of over £450,000. So the key takeaway to that one, know what questions to ask. When you're reviewing options, challenge any gaps in that business case. All of these kind of factors in that previous example could have been identified if there was just the time and the consistency of approach. And also the last point, very important to track and monitor all your investments, because by doing that, you identify previous failures and you're better to understand the pitfalls and limitations going forward. So that is all I had at this point. So really, as I say, opening the floor up to any questions, any comments, any experiences you might have, and any value add I can provide in addition to this. I can see one chat now. Okay, that's the thing. That's from Sam. Thank you. Are there any questions? Have I stunned everyone? Are you frightened to death?
If anyone wants to come off of mute rather than putting it in the chat now, that's absolutely fine as well.
So yes, a lot to absorb and a lot to work on, but
it was interesting to hear the points because in a lot of cases you forget a lot of that. You know, probably 40 or 50% of those points. It's the others that you forgot. And it's the forgetting. It's a useful, very useful review. Very useful.
Yes, I mean, often what we do is we provide a checklist. So when I go into a business, I'll try and provide a checklist relevant to that business. And that's just best business practice of all the things which you should try and consider at least, even if it's not applicable to that project. And it reminds the teams, as you say, it's common sense, it's just forgotten. And sometimes it can be critical.
Yeah. Useful. Are you sending the slides around or not?
Yes, we are. Yeah, they'll be out by the end of the week.
Thank you very much. Save me making loads of notes. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or experiences?
Sorry, it took me a while there to find the key combination. Yeah, it rings a lot of bells with so a lot of the clients that I've worked with, and I guess I really ought to sort of turn the focus on myself in some of this as well. But the GPS example was a classic case of a lot of my clients where it's the I think as engineers we're particularly prone to just assuming that everyone wants exactly the same thing as us, and we forget that we are somewhere out on the 99th centile. We're strange people at the best of times. So I definitely see that. And I guess there's so many things changed in the last year that where we might have tended to evolve step by step with some of these things, there's so many different aspects have changed at the same time. The market's changed. From my point of view, probably Brexit has had a bigger impact than COVID. And in fact, the run up to COVID, because a lot of early stage Internet of Things startups were already saying, well, we can base ourselves anywhere in Europe. With the uncertainty, let's go to Paris or Berlin. So a lot of my client base had moved overseas anyway, and a lot of the investment money is now refocused on rather than sponsoring moonshot type startups. They're saying, okay, this money is probably best spent on rescue investments at the moment. Yeah, it's probably made me stop and think a bit about is now the right time to completely refocus on who I try and serve, rather than just adapting slightly to the way that I serve them.
Yes, sadly, a lot of change as a result of Brexit, as you say, investments going elsewhere and people just not able to focus on perhaps what they would have done on their own growth plans.
Mm.
Linda, I've got a question. This, or a comment really, this must be very difficult to do if you are an online retailer and if you've got a huge number of products.
Yes and no. I mean, very rarely do you find companies with lots of different options on the table at any one time. Funnily enough, the company I'm in at the moment probably has the most I've seen at the moment. That they're reviewing priority one, 10 different priority one business cases we're working on. But then it just makes it even more important to assess which ones, even if they're interlinked, which ones are most likely to give you that more immediate return, and how you stage and stagger the rest, because no business can cope with multiple projects at any one time. Well, you increase the risk of failure if you do so. Mm. So yes, it doesn't change the principles, but it just means you've got a lot more complexities in trying to look at resourcing and trying to look at any baseline infrastructural changes which may have to be across multiple projects.
Which can help you to evaluate all this.
Yes, there are different platform tools which you can use. I mean, I'm not sure whether I'm meant to mention names. We're currently using one called Asana, which allows you to put multiple projects in and assess all of that. But there's different tools on the market. And it's also just about having discipline. So we have, through all the businesses I've worked in, we have a review group, which often includes board members, which would more formally review either on a quarterly basis or more frequently what investment activities are going on at any one time, and what status they're at, and whether or not the market's changed, because often you'll start a business case and unless you review that, a competitor might have come in, something will have changed and you have to adapt quickly. So it's important to have the discipline as well, just to manage that process and check that everybody across the business is the changes are very visible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other question, comments? Sharing of experience?
Hello, I'm Lucy. I just wanted to say I'm sorry that I was a little bit late trying to log on, but I'm really interested, but I just get really overwhelmed with all the taking it so much in, and that report that you had up looks great. So I think I need to look at doing something like that. But I'm a hairdressing business, so I don't know whether.
Yeah, so don't be put off. Don't think it's complicated. As I say, most of the financials, I work with teams. They're not financial whiz kids. We work to an Excel sheet, and you just slowly work through. You put down everything you know, and you've got kind of basic templates, and you just add in the changes. The way they work best is if you do try and have a little separate section where you can put them all in and it flows through the model. But you can I'm sure you'll find someone who's got good Excel skills. You don't have to go and employ a financial accountant at all. And we generally don't. If we've got larger business cases going through, I would get our financial people to just double check that it's all correct. But it doesn't matter what size of business you are or what size of project it is. As I say, I've done it for very, very simple ones and then much more complex ones. But it gives you a nice starting point, because you need to think ahead, and you'll need to be looking at where your customers are and which groups they are and how many times they're likely to come and what type of you know, you can build it all up in that way. What type of service will you provide? How much help can you get from selling other products in store and partners and that kind of thing? So yeah, I mean, I'm very happy. As I say, I don't do this as a business as such anymore, but to give you some personal advice, I'm very happy to share that with you afterwards if you wish.
Yeah, why not? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone else just frightened off by it. Anyway, it means that you've gained some time back, which is good for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, so as Sam said, you will receive a follow-up email from us with the slides. And if you've got any specific question, or if you want to have a chat with Linda, she kindly offered to you know, get in touch with you and give you some tips. So thank you very much for attending this morning. Thank you very much, Linda. It's been good working with you as a SEMLEP ambassador, and great, you know, to share your expertise in product and market review. And we wish you a good day. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.